It's almost as if he knew he was going to be kicked out of university with no money, no plans, no one betting on him. And that very same thing happened to be the exact reason why his business does so extremely well nowadays. By the time people have paid off their student loans, he's making $1 million a month. I spent the last week going through Charlie Morgan's videos, posts on school and every other social media platform, every sales page, everything you can think of, all funneled down into this one blueprint that honestly is kind of genius because it's a very unique strategy he uses to go ahead and print this kind of money. So with that being said, welcome to a new channel, and I'm going to show you around this amazing blueprint that we got for us today. So let's begin with who exactly is Charlie Morgan. Charlie Morgan is the co-founder of Imperium Acquisition UK, and he basically teaches agency owners, coaches, consultants how to acquire high-ticket clients for their business. And nowadays that might seem as a very broad market, and to be honest, it completely is, but this guy has been in the space long enough to the point where he is now documenting his journey to actually making $50 million a year off of this. And you can see that through the many years of him posting on this YouTube channel. Now, he's in the meantime actually gone ahead and served 4,000 plus businesses, and he's done more than $300 million in student revenue generated, right? So this means all of his students together have generated $300 million because of him. Now, that's a rough estimation, but you can really understand that this guy is making anywhere from the range of $870,000 to $1 million every single month, doing cash collected $600,000 to $700,000 in profit. Now let's just get into exactly what it is that actually goes ahead and generates this revenue. So first of all, he posts on 5 different platforms. And in this case, you have to understand that the school community, it isn't just a program, right? It's not just a place that people are going to go to for a bit of help. This is one of the best ways that he's gone ahead and collected such a large group of people that he can directly go ahead and post towards. It acts the same way as a WhatsApp or a Telegram group chat, but instead it's on school. Not only these, but does he also have 2 YouTube channels, just to keep in mind. And that's because you see this all over the online space, right? Everyone is going from having a general broad YouTube channel that doesn't really get those high quality leads just because you have to, attract a larger audience, and instead doing niche YouTube channels that are directed to the exact target audience that they want tend to perform a lot better. And that's something that I've talked about many times before. So let's have a look at his 3-tier offer stack that he provides inside of his communities, inside of, his paid consultancy. Everything is listed right here. First of all, we have the free entry. This is where you come from the YouTube channels, from basically every platform. We'll go into that in just a second. But at the moment, there's 64,000 students in there, and it's completely for free. So there's 64,000 people funneled into this one community that is basically going to teach them how to get to 10K a month as those beginning steps towards their financial dreams. And the amazing thing about this is, yes, he doesn't earn any money directly off of this, but let's say those students do get to 10K a month. Well, now they're in the position to go ahead and buy his other programs. So what's actually inside of this to make that, offer so appealing to these people? How has he actually managed to get 64,000 people in this community when he's only got 350,000 subs? As I'm going to be completely honest, this percentage is extremely high for the amount of followers he has. So he has 80 hours of training. So that's already an extremely high amount. 300 templates, 4 A to Z sales scripts, and 4 appointment booking systems as well, with the weekly Q&A recordings. Stated value at $30,000. Now that's just whatever, but you get the point. He has to list it in there. And then the ICP is basically anywhere ages from 19 to 30, from basically a complete beginner to making a roughly 5K a month. So we actually want to increase that as well. And they're just simply attracted by the idea of making money online. The content isn't good enough, the program isn't good enough, and that's why they aren't ready for actually making that. And they are attracted by the idea of actually making more money online. So maybe they don't, maybe they do. But the point is to get to a final destination of that $10,000 a month, because they are not ready for the 10K program. And this comes mainly through the people from TikTok, from YouTube, basically the top of the funnel. Then we head into tier 2. This is where the core paid offer comes into play, right? So we have Easy Grow. Easy Grow is his second tier, and this is what they basically sell, right? So anywhere from 9 to 12K, this is sold on cold, it's not publicly listed. You have to go in there, you see what happens, and so on and so forth. Now, he's done over 4,000 students, so you can imagine how many dollars that is in total, but it makes a lot of sense, right? So what is actually inside of this? Well, simply cold email and DM outbound, everything you would need inside of a business. Paid acquisition, offer creation, sales scripting, all of it is included. Twice weekly live coaching calls, and over 800 plus members in the mastermind planned community with pre-recorded modules and everything on top of that. And then his ICP basically directly follows from that. So it's anywhere ages from 22 to 35. You can kind of see that those ages just increase ever so slightly to go ahead and compensate for the amount of money that they need. The idea is, yes, once you earn your first 10K, you will be able to invest into something like this, right? They're basically helping anyone from 0 to 30K a month to get to actual 30K months consistently. And they have an offer. They've tried a lot of things, but their main struggle is actually getting this consistency and nailed down into good SOPs and into a good timeline that actually makes for a consistent company that works well, that actually makes for a functioning good business, which completely makes sense because a lot of people struggle with this and I see it all the time. And this is more towards the people who have actually gone ahead and watched the YouTube content more consistently. So the people on the second account, but we're going to go into that in just a second. So I think we understand what this offer is basically about. And then lastly, the elite mastermind, right? This is tier 3. This is where he goes 15K plus. It's undisclosed once again. But what's inside is basically a very small little group, just online in people with online and in-person components. Charlie's actually personally involved this time and very high margin, very low volume. You know, there's very small amount of people in here, but he's basically making this full profit. You have to be making 30K a month at a minimum. Obviously, ICP is 26 to 40, but can range. Like, this is not a certain figure, but this person should have already cracked the acquisition and now is actually hitting and scaling. And now they're at a point where they can't really scale past where they are. And this is where he comes into play, right? They want to reach 100K a month and they've already done the 10K consulting. They've already gone through all the steps inside of this 3-tier program, but now they're at the very bottom. They have employees, they have contractors, they have all these people that they basically need to go ahead and support, and they need to turn into a bigger growing business, right? That's the only problem that they're facing. Let's have a look at the step-by-step funnel map of this. How does this actually look like? So we're going to look at the top of the actual funnel. These are the actual platforms. Now, we're not going to include school because it's not social media, but it is a form of marketing. All right. So you are able to promote people on there with no problem. Now, firstly, you have what I like to call the light social medias, right? The ones that bring you in from the very top. If you're scrolling your feed, you're an individual, you'll come into these 3. This specifically on X doesn't do as many impressions. And normally if you're going to promote a lot on X, it would come down to software companies. They're mostly doing the most. But I really like the fact that he's actually gone ahead and integrated this just because it does bring in extra results, right? You have to understand leaving that on the table is just missing out on a ton of different views, a ton of different people, because there are many, many qualified people from X as well. You have to think about that. And some people genuinely just prefer it as a social media platform over Instagram or TikTok. It's just the way that the world works, right? But yes, majority is going to come through the Instagram, through the TikTok as well. And then they basically all feed off of each other. But the idea is here that they make this transition. But that's only if they're qualified enough, right? So once you've gone into the Instagram, you've looked at a couple of his reels, you think he's interesting, you go into his YouTube. This is where you actually gain some value from him. And as I mentioned just before, if you're qualified, you can then make the transition to his second business account, or you might start looking at it. And this is where he really talks about what he does with his clients. And the same way happens here, right? You're still going to make this transition first and then that one, because this one's frankly so much larger than this one over here. And a quick thing to note on is that you'll actually be surprised, but because his YouTube channel has been around the longest, he has the most subscribers on here, or the most followers, so to speak, 310K on here, whereas on Instagram, he's got just a bit less at 126. But if you look at these newer platforms like the TikTok and the X, he has barely any traction coming through here, and the same goes for this one. But in total, because of the amount of volume that he does, he simply will hit those million views every single month. That's going to funnel right back into his personal brand. So in the end, does it matter if he has followers on there? No, this is just one of the streams that feeds into that pond. And the same way goes that he doesn't actually push a ton of views on his actual main channel. So from this, where do they go? They go through the process of joining into a school community. You fill it in simply so that they have all your information. You make it onto the spreadsheet. It's very simple to understand. And through that, he will be contacting you if you are qualified enough, which you will fill in over here. And then we make it to the free school community. This is the middle of the funnel, right? It's funny, every single week for the premium clients inside of the school community, so you can actually upgrade this. So you can go from $0 to $500 and even $1,000 like some pro premium. But the difference is that when you make that $500 leap, you basically get access to his Q&As every single week and actually being in the Q&A and asking him yourself. Whereas, as I mentioned before, they do have the Q&As, but you only get to see the recorded call afterwards. And yes, you can ask him questions, but it goes through a system that basically it's a big hassle. Once you're in those calls, once you're actually paid and you get these Q&As, you basically get referred to this straight away. They basically skip whatever's inside of the school because they don't really care. They just want to get a reason to have all this information. And it's an amazing way because they've collected 65,000 leads off the back of this, right? So no matter what the offer is, how much you're getting for free, in the end, they've got 65,000 leads that they can go ahead and see how qualified they are, their socials, their emails, and send them as much publicity as possible. And then step 3 is actually going to an AI growth call. This is where you get that free strategy call and then the closer actually goes ahead and sells. And then in step 4, the core program, this is where Easy Grow TM, so the students, $9,000 to $12,000, they go into this. And that's where you get that premium upsell right afterwards to the Imperium Mastermind, which you can see has been an extremely popular kind of format nowadays just because of how much content can be filmed, how many people can be helped in the same time, and how much revenue you generate for basically a couple days. So let's have a look at the statistics and just see what is really important and how many impressions they get, how much money is basically made off the back of these, right? And what their reason being there for is. First of all, his YouTube. This is more to do with his lifestyle. He basically updates people on how things go. If he's got any questions inside of the space, he'll just make a generalized kind of video, just answering a bunch of questions or sharing life lessons, those kind of things to get the top of the funnel leads to push into that school community as mentioned before. Now from that, he pushes them into the actual business channel. This is obviously where they will go ahead and buy the programs and so on, the more expensive ones. But you can see that huge shift in actual monthly view rate, but this is only for the highest intent of booking as many calls as possible. And then for the Instagram, it's just warming up for the retargeting loop, so sending it straight to YouTube. And then the same goes for the TikTok, just basically planting that initial seed that people are going to then see you in other social medias and so on. And then the Twitter is amazing for amplifying the amount of knowledge, thousands of testimonials that he's got everywhere. So he does this constantly. And then again, in the school, there's no specific amount of views, but this is where they warm people up for those high ticket versions. Okay, so now let's have a look at the actual content strategy behind all of this. It's a very interesting one because it's actually quite different and separated from a lot of different people. He's got a very simple way of doing this and he focuses directly to the people who want to go ahead and start a business. No more, no less. His formats normally consist of 10 to 60 minutes. That very much shows the people who are going to click on his videos that yes, he really puts time into this, or he has actual speaking points that he'll talk about for long enough times. It's similar to a podcast, gives a very close connection to the actual viewer. And amazingly, it gives just as much B-roll for short form to go ahead and repurpose on all these other social media. So not only is he doing it for the fact that yes, it's going to build more trust, but just filming one video can lead to 100, 200 clips. He's a very logical guy. He really likes giving the facts out. So his hooks basically consist of give me these many minutes and I'm going to show you how to fix or teach or whatever it may be a certain solution. And he does this for, again, those leads that are just getting into the online money space. That's why I'll make videos like this, which hit very certain small targets of, young guys, whatever it may be, to push into his school community. He's very personalized about everything that he does. He really likes to sell on his story, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video. And he positions himself really as an expert that you need to trust him because he doesn't buy a Lamborghini, for example. He opens it all the time with that kind of info just to push that narrative so that when people get to know him, they don't feel like, wait, this guy's just trying to sell me on a course because he wants to buy his new Lamborghini, right? And then his CTAs always consist to his school community. He has it on his home feature as the trailer video. It basically just has a huge VSL that just shows you around the community. And then the same way goes for this second YouTube channel, the Charlie Morgan business version, where he's got a bunch less followers, but his formats are slightly longer. They're more in depth. They're more into the business side of things. And they're normally taken out of these masterminds or snippets out of these more complex, high level skilled calls, whatever it is, right? The hooks are exact systems. He doesn't want to do any, rubbish intro, whatever it is, just straight to the facts. And I'm going to tell you everything you need to know. And you can learn more simply by watching more videos or joining my community. And his CTA is there just to book as many high ticket calls as possible. And then he actually just skips the school completely. Very ever so slightly does he actually mention it. You can see here in his description that that. That's the first priority. You can see that also here. That's their first priority, right? And then lastly, the Instagram of Charlie Morgan, mostly reels. And these come from the YouTube clips. Like I mentioned, those formats really play heavily into exactly how much he can post. And then he does a lot of carousels, but I can't lie, they're very low quality and they can actually be improved. So inside of the Charlie Morgan actual Instagram account, we can see that he's pinned the Imperial Academy right at the very top. And then the rest of these, similar to those, are going to be carousels that basically lead you through a process, give you a tiny bit of information, hit on a pain point, and then they simply ask for, like, let's say DM paper, and I'm going to send you all the SOPs. Now, he's done this many times. It works very well. You can do it with an integration into ManyChat. But to be completely honest with you, I don't think the quality of his are standing out too much. He doesn't use different photos. You can check it yourself. But I think the quality and the actual aesthetics need to be higher. And that's actually going to do him a better favor. So Charlie, if you're watching this, just lock in. So as I mentioned, the reels as well are basically the exact same as the TikTok. Those come from the long form. It's very easy to do. Definitely if you're recording it at his length, like I mentioned before. And then from there, he's just pushing it all into the school. There's no way that you can go ahead and book high ticket calls off of the back of something like this. Now, this is a C channel, as we've said before. It's very simple. Again, the exact same kind of stuff when it comes to reels, but just on TikTok. We need to repurpose. We need to get more views, more attention. This is where you're going to do that. And then lastly, on X, this is where he's just basically pushing these short form kind of posts. He's again got the school community pinned at the very top here. You can see that. The one thing he's always doing is positioning himself more towards the Alex Hormozi side of things, if that makes sense. Less of someone who is flexing lifestyle, showboating, and then actually proving that they can, back it up. No, he's just saying, look, I've got all the knowledge. I've done everything, and you should work with me if you want to improve your business. So what are the core strategic principles? Well, give away the best free stuff for absolutely free. The more value you give inside the school, more value you give on your socials, whatever it may be, it feels like less of a risk when they're simply going to buy something that is high ticket, or even go ahead and, fill in information. Stuff like that comes at a price. They know if they're going to put in their information, they're probably going to get something back from you. And that's why they do it, right? Then they lead it all into one funnel, even off the back of multiple different traffic sources. They're not specifically doing one for the other. No, every platform feeds into this different audience, but they're simply segmented into the same single path. So the strategy here is as many people into a school community as possible. And then from there, they can go down this funnel path, right? So it makes so much sense. Then the CTA actually never changes, right? You either go ahead and join the school or you book a call. It's one or the other. There's no third or fourth or fifth. Whereas a lot of people have all these different systems that they got in place, not even necessarily CTAs, but they'll go ahead and push these different kind of ticket offers or whatever it may be. It's very easy to understand in this case, because once you've joined the school, you've already made enough of a commitment to go ahead and then get those other offers through, and then you don't really think about it too much. And then lastly, 4, closers sell, Charlie creates. He's trained the closers to handle everything inside of the sales calls, right? This is what he does literally himself. Charlie touches literally none of it. He only does the content creation side of things. And you can see that by the way that he talks, by the way that you see his setup. This guy is behind his computer all the time, just filming. And then he also handles the relationship side of things. 5 is that the actual community sells itself. There's almost 65,000 members posting basically 24/7. And that in of itself shows the amount of commitment people are giving. And that if you really take those 64,000 people, you can turn them into a ton of high quality leads, because it's feeding off the back of each other. People who feel like they're in a community, as soon as one person goes one way, then the rest are going to try and follow, right? So as soon as one person makes a ton of money, the same thing's going to happen for the others. We have to understand that the personality converts more than actual expertise at most cases. Now, in this case, it is very balanced. I'm going to be completely honest, but you can see though that the lifestyle channels do push more, that the business channels, yes, they get more of those qualified ones, but in the end of the day, where the real money is sitting inside of his main YouTube channel. But what we've just gone over today is a lot to take in at first glance, of course, but it's a very easy system to understand. You have to see where the lead comes in from, what process they travel through, and then being able to track exactly what goes where, what generates what money. That's the difficult part within these kind of funnels, and that's what Trakyo actually solves. I wonder maybe we would have better insights. Charlie, if you can hit us up, let us know if you use Trakyo, to be honest. But in all seriousness though, a system like this would make a lot more sense with some sort of tracking tool that could run you through the full process. Now on this channel, I'm going to be doing a ton more breakdowns. Like this is the first one of God knows how many we're going to push out. We've got like the infinity stones, we're coming together and we're going to give you the best value content content you've ever seen in your life. So with that being said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week for another video.